was frustrating as coitus. Jack Dorsey, CEO of Twitter, did an appearance on Joe Rogan a while back now, and people felt that Joe was really kind of soft-pedaling him there. So he's come back to do another interview, and this time Joe brought on Tim Pool to give a bit more firm, informed pushback. Tim did okay, not as well as I would have liked him to do, but he was also accompanied this time, Jack was, by a PR drone, Vijay Gaddy, and it just became apparent throughout this entire process that they were lying constantly, or misrepresenting, or didn't understand how their own company worked to a great degree, or their own disciplinary system, and that a lot of the time they just absolutely could not comprehend what Tim was telling them, or that Tim wasn't necessarily stumping for what he was telling them himself, but he was describing other people's problems with the platform and why they might have the problems that they do. Then a lot of people watching, activists, semi-journalists as well, didn't seem to understand that Tim was talking about what other people thought rather than himself. So we got this bizarre situation of people misinterpreting, misinforming about what Tim was saying on Twitter live, while he's trying to explain it to people for whom these ideas are just a completely outside context problem. An outside context problem was the sort of thing most civilizations encountered just once, and which they tended to encounter rather in the same way a sentence encountered a full stop. The usual example given to illustrate an outside context problem was imagining you were a tribe on a largish fertile island. You'd tamed the land, invented the wheel or writing or whatever. The neighbours were cooperative or enslaved, but at any rate peaceful, and you were busy raising temples to yourself with all the excess productive capacity you had. You were in a position of near absolute power and control, which your hallowed ancestors could hardly have dreamed of, and the whole situation was running along nicely like a canoe on wet grass. When suddenly this bristling lump of iron appears, sailless and trailing steam in the bay, and these guys carrying long funny-looking sticks come ashore and announce that you've just been discovered, you're all subjects of the Emperor now, he's keen on presents called tax, and these bright-eyed holy men would like a word with your priests. Twitter seems to be in the bizarre position of being a technology company that has succumbed to the extreme kind of techno shock that you'd expect in the instance of an outside context problem. With them, it's not technological superiority, it's just that there are cultures out there, subgroups, subcultures, that are so fundamentally different to their San Francisco bubble that they just cannot comprehend them. What's especially weird about this is that the cultures that they have trouble comprehending and understanding, the outlooks that they have trouble comprehending and understanding, are not foreign ones. Those they're willing to be accommodating to. They'll tailor to different nations' ways of thinking about things. Pakistan, for example, and their blasphemy laws. It's not quite as bad as the Conservatives have blown it up to be, but it is still alarming to be told that you're breaking blasphemy laws in Pakistan on an American-owned platform when you're posting in the English language. It's just, yeah, that's odd. But that they're willing and able to accommodate, but they're not willing and able to accommodate conservative or even social libertarian points of view. To stress, I am not conservative, I do not agree with conservative viewpoints, but I believe that they have a right to express them. They also, while they admit that they're powerful, are so utterly terrified of government regulation that in the next breath they kind of deny it. That doesn't make a great deal of sense. In fact, so terrified are Twitter and other companies like Facebook of some kind of regulation or being considered a utility that they're often willing to go along with censorship and so on by the back door from countries like Germany, for example, who enforce all kinds of bans and controls and suppressions via Facebook without having passed any laws or so on to do so, because all they have to do is hold that threat over Facebook's head, and they cooperate. And doubtless the same kind of thing is going on Twitter. And we got an insight into the process of thinking that goes into these, and where this disconnect is, as Tim repeatedly tried to make them understand that the public square is now privately owned, and that this is a problem, and why it's a problem, and they just couldn't get it. They constantly look like a dog that's been shown a card trick. What really scratched my face and gripped my shit was when they were talking about enforcement and all the precautions and things that they take. They don't just ban people outright without some kind of human oversight, which is bullshit, and I know it's bullshit because this kind of thing has happened to me, and I have gone above and beyond to try and contact Twitter to resolve these situations, to find out what's going on, to solve the issues. I phoned their UK office, couldn't help. I tried phoning their US office, don't deal with those issues here, no matter what, we can't tell you who to contact. Even tried contacting legal, all of this after trying to use their various appeals processes and so on. So my old Twitter account got permanently suspended out of the blue. I still don't really know why, other than it has something to do with repeating Will Wheaton's analogy back to him. You know, this was just before he quit Twitter, though he's come back now, and it was when he was describing Twitter as being like that cool club you used to go to that's been taken over by Nazis. Little realizing that in his analogy, he is the Nazi, the person who has invaded the cool club and started insisting that everybody else follow what he does. But I don't know that. I was never told that. I don't think anybody, any human, overlooking that decision process could possibly have come to the conclusion the telling Will Wheaton that he's got his analogy backwards counts in any way as an attack or harassment or a call to action or whatever else. But that account is now permanently suspended, which means any future accounts that I make are under risk, because one bad ruling means that anything else is technically a ban evasion. I'm very lucky that my current accounts haven't been terminated in that way. But I was left with absolutely no choice. I exhausted every other avenue to get hold of Twitter, to get an explanation, to get a reason, to offer a remedy, and none of it worked. Now, that account did have some past infractions due to brigading. That used to be a thing. If you're on atheist religious Twitter and you got involved in those kind of debates, a bunch of people, a bunch of radical, evangelical Christian types, would mass flag tweets that you'd done, and that would knock you offline because there was some kind of automated process whereby if it reached a certain degree of critical mass, it would suspend your account, and then you would have to appeal and wait. That changed for a while, but it now appears to be back because brigading is back with a vengeance, baby, and it's back in political Twitter as well as atheist Twitter. So that's a problem, and it seems like they're saying that you get strikes on your account. Well, this is the first I've heard of it. There's no way to see what kind of standing your account is in, and most of the time when you get an infraction, which seems to mostly be done by an automated process these days, you don't bother fighting it because you want your account back, and a 24-hour suspension is better than waiting days or weeks to hear back from Twitter. So there are going to be tons of people on 1, 2, 3 strikes on their account for various levels of infraction that haven't actually done anything wrong, but they just haven't bothered to appeal the decision, and then that wait is going to count against them in the future when someone else reports them. So you can lose your account more easily by going along with things and just accepting that they've done something to your account. And this stuff doesn't seem to sunset, it seems to carry on forever. So there is no path to redemption, which is something that they talked about there. These infractions should probably sunset, because that old account probably got ass blasted because brigading in atheist-theist debates, brigading and hot-headed arguments during Gamergate, and then apparently some kind of brigade around Will Wheaton. But it doesn't end there. Figures of speech are also a big problem on Twitter, and this suggests to me that they are outsourcing a lot of their decision making either to algorithms which don't understand nuance or context, or to overseas support, people that don't understand English idiomatic language. My new account was suspended twice, and now I know that that's 2 strikes against that account. Why? I used the phrase "enough rope to hang themselves," which was construed as a threat, which it most obviously is not. So the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. There's a lot of highfalutin, high concept language there about scaling and path to redemption and human oversight, but it's just not true. And we got no solid commitments, and Jack Dorsey couldn't be pinned down because that PR hack was sat right next to him the whole time. And poor old Tim, he was very much outnumbered because Rogan was trying to play the referee. Such a frustrating thing to watch. And Twitter is not transparent. There were no comments allowed on that stream. How are you supposed to get these people's attention? How can I get a human being to look at my cases and discuss them with me? I can't. You can't. Nobody can. It's all fucked, and they don't seem willing or able to consider other points of view or the kinds of solutions that would really work. Remember when Twitter was the free speech wing of the free speech party? Is it fuck?
Your habits, your facts, your fears, your bus, your address, your shoe size, your years, your digits, your plans, your number, your eyes, your schedule, your distance.